Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to my channel, Breathe and Balance, where we speak about everything magical, mystical, and metaphysical to bring back balance to all aspects of our lives. And today, we are going to talk about something that is of the greatest importance to achieve that balance for our souls as much as for our lives. And that is shadow integration. So I'm Chathuri Jayasooriya. I'm a psychospiritual practitioner based here in Sri Lanka. Shadow work is one of my most favorite tools and ways of inquiring into the self and the soul. It really allows you to do deep inner work. So that's why I'm fond of calling myself a light and shadow worker. A lot of people tend to uh, be a little bit fearful of the shadow and doing shadow work. I would say, yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, but it can be quite fascinating in terms of what it will reveal to you about yourself and about life, and about your relationships, so on and so forth, but especially about yourself. And it has so much wisdom and medicine and magic to offer if you take that courage to really delve into the darkness within, right? And explore and engage with the shadow. So let me first give you a very brief introduction on what the shadow is, especially for those of you who may not be too familiar with this concept, although it's a very popular term and a concept now that is being used in both psychology, spirituality, and in self-development, so on. So I'm sure you can find a lot of information, on the internet. So I welcome you to do your own research on this, but I would like to give you a very basic and easy to understand version or an introduction to the shadow based on my own understanding and experience. So the shadow is a part of our unconscious mind. There are many components to the unconscious, and the shadow comprises of one aspect of this unconscious. So the shadow basically comprises of the parts within us which we have dismissed or denied or disowned and rejected as bad or wrong. Okay, so there are certain aspects of us due to various reasons that have been repressed and pushed into the unconscious. And usually this is because of the shame attached to it, right? Certain judgments attached to it by society and family, so on. And so these rejected parts of us don't disappear. They just go to form what we refer to as the shadow self, and it over time assumes its own life force and drives us from behind. And I'm referring to as behind because it's in the unconscious, in a space that we cannot see easily. And therefore, We don't access it, because it's not in our awareness, right? But that doesn't mean it's inaccessible. We definitely can. There are certain methods through which we can access and work with the shadow to bring it into our awareness or our consciousness, right? So the shadow, the term shadow or the shadow self is something introduced and popularized by Carl Jung, a psychologist, to refer to these rejected parts that had been pushed into the unconscious, right? But the concept, the idea of the shadow, of course, existed way before that. Shadow has been alluded to in almost all the different spiritual and mystic traditions in the world, although they may have used different terminology to refer to it. Like, for example, in Buddhism, it's referred to as the Mara or kleshas or defilements, which is basically all our attachments and addictions, obsessions, desires, illusions, fears, and such things, right? Which is usually in the unconscious. And even in like other traditions, it may be referred to as the devil. For example, even in tarot, there is a card. It's called the devil. It's a major arcana card. And very interestingly, it's a depiction of the devil. And there are two people next to him or in front of him. And you will see that they're actually not bound. The devil is not kind of keeping them trapped. They're free to go. What it's conveying is that it's the illusion that we get attached to. So there is an attachment there that keeps us trapped in a particular energy, and usually an unwholesome energy or a particular, fear. But it is always possible to disentangle ourselves and find the illumination and freedom by bringing in the light or awareness through the process of making the unconscious the conscious. So all these frameworks are actually referring to something very similar, which is that there is an unconscious and there are certain parts of us that have been repressed and pushed into the unconscious. And therefore, it's not an expressed part of ourselves, it's suppressed. But these suppressed parts of us, which we now call the shadow self, over time assumes a life and therefore a lot of power, and then starts to drive us from the unconscious. And the problem here is then that it causes a lot of disarray, disharmony, and chaos in our lives, in all aspects of our lives, in our relationships, in our health, career, spiritual progress, so on and so forth. So let us now speak a little bit about the traits or the characteristics of the shadow, right? So as I mentioned, the shadow is unconscious. It's in the unconscious. So we are not aware of whatever that is in the unconscious, right? And it consists of the repressed parts of us, which we have denied and rejected. And we have disowned these parts within us. So these repressed parts don't always have to be something negative. It can be certain positive aspects about yourselves as well, which has been suppressed due to various reasons. For example, being assertive or, your power. expressions of your power. For example, and once again, it's due to certain judgments that they often get repressed. Yeah, so it's in the unconscious, it's repressed, and the third most important characteristic of the shadow is that these shadows or these parts or qualities that are rejected then gets projected onto others, right? Which means that through the law of correspondence, you start seeing these suppressed and therefore unexpressed parts of you, which could be behaviors, characteristics, attitudes, etc., in another person, right? So that is how the projection takes place. Because the external world is nothing but a reflection of the internal world. So the universe has a way of, showing you or holding you the mirror through this so-called external world so that we can really see what is happening inside of us, right? So just like how we need to go in front of a mirror to see our physical form, we need something to reflect what is going on within us or what lies there deep inside of us so that we can heal whatever the parts within us that needs the healing or transformation and integration when it comes to the shadow, right? So yeah, these are the key characteristics of the shadow. So how do we detect the shadow? Right? It's pretty easy actually. If you can right now think of certain qualities that you don't like about yourself or you don't want to be associated with. For example, like if you keep telling yourself, oh, I'm such a peaceful person, I'm not at all aggressive or angry, I'm such an honest person, I had never done anything dishonest, and I'm not a jealous person, and things like that, that you refuse to identify yourself with. So likely that's, a suppressed aspect of yourself, right? Now, this does not mean that you need to become those or be attached to those qualities. It's just about us acknowledging and being willing to see that there may be certain attributes, characteristics, behaviors, attitudes, thoughts, beliefs, whatever, that we may have suppressed to such an extent because we have rejected those, and that's because we have judged them as negative or shameful, as bad, all the should nots, that we have in our minds, or we shouldn't be this or we shouldn't be that, that's the kind of thing that goes into the unconscious through repression, right? And the other very interesting and the easiest way to identify the shadow within you is to see where you tend to judge other people. Basically triggers. Like if somebody really triggers you and you feel this intense judgment towards that person or a particular quality in that person, when we judge somebody or when we resist or when we are triggered, it's actually not the entirety of the person. No, it's something about that person that triggers us, right? So it could be the lack of integrity and accountability. It could be that person is lying all the time, whatever, you feel is wrong, bad, shouldn't. Okay, so that is very much likely that it's a projection. And there's a very interesting, phenomena, which is the law of correspondence I was referring to. So, as they say, what you resist persists, right? And it's the universe's way of trying to draw your attention to those repressed parts or the shadow self so that you can heal, transmute, and integrate it. So what it's going to do is that, let's say, you are denying an aspect of yourself. Let's say, for example, women across cultures are told that they should not be angry. Like anger is a very repressed quality or an emotion, in the conditioning process of the woman. Of course, generally, I think it's discouraged. Now I'm not saying that we all need to be angry all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But um, this particular emotion has got a very bad reputation, and it's suppressed all the time, especially like women, the stereotypical idea of a woman is, she has to be very soft and submissive, etc. So the quality of anger is not something that is accepted in the embodiment of the archetype of the woman, right? Or the ideal woman, I would say, the idea or the archetype of the ideal woman, right? So what then happens is from a very young age, we as women learn to swallow that emotion and we keep rejecting it because we had, for example, we may have expressed anger and then we may have been told repeatedly, oh, you should not be angry. And then we keep repressing that anger. And then what happens, it forms the shadow. And later on in our lives, we may either attract a lot of people who are very angry, right? Or there could even be, moments where you express this sudden outbursts of anger, which you deem to be very uncharacteristic, as it is known not me moments, right? And that's another way to identify the shadow, the not me moment. So very out of character kind of behavior, so those are the moments when the shadow, the repressed parts of you suddenly gets expressed. So it could be through you or it could be through another person you attract into your reality that showcases those unexpressed parts of you, right? So these are the main forms through which the shadow expresses itself. Of course, there are many more, but I'm just sharing what can easily be identified in your day-to-day life. So there's a lot of self-sabotage as well that takes place due to the activation of the shadow, right? Okay, so now that we know how to detect these shadows as well, let's see why it is important to work with the shadow. And why is it important to transmute and integrate the shadow, right? So if you could just look at these spaces of darkness, right, which we usually run away from. As I mentioned earlier, there is a fear associated with the shadow, right? And that is because I think there's a natural inclination of the ego mind to shrink away from anything that makes it feel as if it's losing its control, anything that takes away its control, basically, right? And in any space of darkness, the ego feels that it does not have its authority, it's losing its power, its force. And that creates a kind of a lack of safety, right? And it doesn't like it at all, right? It feels very threatened. So, so that's why we fear the unknown. Like anything in the future is the unknown, right? And anytime you want to keep wanting to figure things out and wanting the answers, wanting certainty, those are the spaces where there's darkness and a lack of control, therefore. and the ego mind creates a lot of discomfort around it, right? But if you actually pause for a moment and, wonder with curiosity, what is the reason why we fear the darkness so much? And what is this darkness about? What is it really offering us? So if you look at some of the spaces of darkness, let's say, for example, the womb of a mother. So that's where birth takes place, right? So for 9 months, the child in the state of an embryo goes through the process of gestation before birth takes place, right? And if you look at either the cosmic womb or the womb of Mother Earth, these are spaces of creation, just as much as that of the womb of a human mother. So ideation takes place in the cosmic womb, right? And you need to place a seed deep within the womb of Mother Earth in order for it to gestate and develop from the state of a seed into a plant bearing fruit one day. But it's in that space of darkness that it gets to know itself and what its destiny is. So there's a lot of energetic transformation, alchemy that takes place in the darkness. As I always say, there are truths that can be known only in the darkness. The truths that get illuminated in the darkness, through the darkness, right? And it is also the space of hibernation, of healing, where the divine spirit works its magic, in your soul and on earth and in the cosmos and in all the spaces. It works with our soul to help us evolve, to help us create, transform, and awaken. So these are processes that essentially needs the space of darkness to culminate. So the space of the shadow, which is also a space of darkness, has much to offer. It has a lot of wisdom, magic, and medicine to offer. As I mentioned, if you learn how to really befriend this, how to really, I don't really like the word confront, but it is to really engage with it, get to know it, form a relationship and a rapport with it, and become its student. I think that's very important, a sense of humility as much as courage and trust, and strength. Because it's not a very easy space or a comforting space. There's a lot of discomfort and unease and even unsafety that you can feel, or rather the ego mind will make you feel as you are moving through the darkness or any space of darkness and the shadow, right? Because after all, we are talking about, certain aspects of us that we had come to dislike about ourselves. We had been rejecting these parts. So to really sit with those parts, to really get to know them, to really accept them as a part of us, removing all those judgments, that takes some courage, but that's what ultimately strengthens you and empowers you and helps you to take back or reclaim your power from spaces and people and situations. You had lost it too. That's where the rejection actually is coming from, because you had absorbed the voice and the attitudes, beliefs of someone else and the society, you know. For example, if you at one point shared a truth, you expressed your truth, you vocalized it, and somebody said that was wrong, you know, your mother, father, friends, teachers, whoever, your boss, some person in authority, you know, said that was wrong and shamed you, what is going to happen afterwards, you think? Especially if this happened in your childhood, you're going to stop expressing your truth because you felt ashamed, and the shame gets seeped into your very tissues, your fascia, your nervous system, you know, your entire body, you know, kind of absorbs it. And if it has been repeated, you know, over many times, then it gets ingrained even deeper. And you learn to muffle your voice, you learn to swallow your truths, and you stop expressing that, you know, and then over time, you lose sight of yourself, your soul, your truth. You forget your authentic self, you repress it. You start wearing the masks and you become performative, you know, and then one day you get really tired, you know, of the performance and you collapse. There comes a day when the ego has to collapse, you know, and that is the time when you go through the dark night of the soul in order to find that authentic self that you lost in the first place because of the absorption of these rejections. Okay, so all this is a part of the shadow work that we need to do, right? So it's as fascinating as it is fearsome at the beginning, you know, as much as it is uncomfortable. So why it is important for us to work with this shadow is because, as I mentioned, it otherwise creates a lot of chaos in our lives, and it disempowers us because the shadow can drive us from a space which we have no control of, right? It's in the unconscious, and we are not, and we are unable to control what is in the unconscious, right? It's like dealing with a hidden enemy. But once you start confronting and it's in your consciousness and awareness, then you have more choice, and therefore you are more empowered, or you can make much more empowering choices in your life, right? So that's one aspect of it. And on the other hand, once the shadow gets integrated, then you become much more whole. You know, there is more wholeness within you, and that is when you are able to really connect with the divine within, because the divine is in both the light and the shadow. It's not only in the light, right? And most importantly, this is what I would actually like to emphasize upon. The pathway to illumination is through the darkness and the shadow. And if light creates the shadow, it's the shadow that illuminates the path towards awakening, evolution, and ultimate liberation. So if you are a spiritual seeker, searching for the light, for that ultimate freedom, trust me, you cannot do that if you are unable to, unwilling to meet with your shadow self first. Because it's the shadow self that's going to be your most trusted and trustworthy teacher and companion on this journey, because it is going to reveal to you so many truths, deeper truths within you that has been hidden in these shadow spaces. Right. And those spaces, those parts of us that we had rejected due to whatever reason, deserves as much compassion as those parts that contain the light. And if we want to bring back balance and harmony and peace into our lives and experience unconditional love, we need to start with the shadow. We need to be able to offer that love to our shadow as much as to the light, right? And it's only when we're able to do that, we become truly whole and we connect deeply with the divine within and the wholeness within. And it's when we are able to unconditionally love all aspects of ourselves, including, I would say, especially our shadow, that we become unconditionally loving towards everybody else and everything else. You know? And this is the pathway, I would say, to that ultimate state of oneness. You know, we, especially in the field of spirituality, we are fond of talking about the inner union. So what is this inner union about? You know, it's the balancing and harmonization and merging of the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine, and the light and the shadow. You know, and we should not forget that aspect on this journey. So if you are keen to experience that inner union, then my invitation to you is to open yourself up to embrace the shadow as well, you know, and you will definitely not regret that, right? Especially for those of you who have been a bit hesitant to embark on this journey of working with the shadow, exploring it, delving into those deeper spaces of darkness, because the ego has convinced you that it's unsafe. So this is my invitation to you to step onto it with all the courage that you can muster. For you will definitely not regret it. You know, I promise you that, because you know, everything that I'm now sharing with you is based on my own truth of having explored my shadow, especially over the last 4 years, having done deep shadow work. And, you know, I was not even aware of what the shadow was, you know, before I embarked on this journey. And the universe actually, you know, pushed me into the deepest darkness that I could have ever encountered within me and in my life. And of course, it was extremely, extremely, excruciatingly painful, not only uncomfortable. And of course, there was a lot of resistance that I also encountered. But after some time, when I realized the value and the wisdom, the alchemy that the shadow is capable of bringing, then I slowly started to befriend it and welcome it. And I'm happy to say, by now, of course, I won't ever say that, you know, that it's easy. And I don't believe that anything has to be easy. You know, that's once again a belief. The discomfort is always there whenever the shadow comes up to be seen and embraced and integrated. But I have reached a space where I'm now no longer running from it. And I'm able to sit with the discomfort and really confront it and explore. Having seen and experienced the benefits. And every time I transmit an integrated shadow, there is so much more freedom that I experience, right? And that freedom is worth the deepest shadow work that I can, ever imagine doing, confronting the darkest demon within me, is very much worth it. Yeah, once you kind of move through the pain, yeah, you start seeing and experiencing the light that it contains. So as I always say, you can't circumvent it, the pathway is always through and through the shadow. And I think my life is very much a testament to it. And I'm really happy, and now I feel quite happy when the shadows come up to be, dealt with and embraced, And it's, of course, progressive work. And I think there'll be a deeper and deeper layers of the shadow till, for as long as we live and until we reach that ultimate state, whether you call it nirvana, moksha, or whatever. Up until that stage, of course, we'll have to keep working with the shadow. But if I'm to share my experience, ultimately, the greatest benefit I think that I have experienced is that the deep compassion that is both the offering and the medicine for the shadow, right? I mean, that's the ultimate result of doing the shadow work, that compassion towards the self and the other that you are able to truly feel within. I think collectively also there is an understanding of the importance of doing shadow work for both personal growth as well as for spiritual evolution. I was inspired to start a series on this channel to explore different aspects of the shadow on a monthly basis using intuitive healing and cards. So that's something I'm quite excited about. And I would love to hold gentle space for you, because shadow work can demand a lot from us if we are really sincere about it and committed to it. So it's always good to have someone to hold that gentle space for you, so that you don't have to give in to the impulse of the ego to run away from it. And it can actually be a very magical, interesting, and even fun process to engage in. So that's what I would love for all of us to experience together. So I invite you to join me on this journey to explore our personal shadows together, because it's our personal shadows that ultimately create the collective shadows. So every time we transmute and integrate a shadow within us, we contribute to healing the collective shadow as well. And we all know how much healing our world needs, and all the wars and epidemics, pandemics, whatever the chaos that we witness in our worlds is a product of these unhealed shadows. So let us work together in healing our own shadows, so that we can contribute to the healing and transformation of this beautiful world which we inhabit. Okay, so till we meet next time, have a lovely day. Bye for now.